Hi, and welcome to One Life Matters, the podcast that reminds you that your life is worth living with purpose, joy, and authenticity. I'm Trish, a counsellor and life coach, and I'll be sharing down to earth conversations, insights, and tools to help you navigate the ups and downs of life. Whether you're healing from the past, finding your confidence, or simply wanting to feel more at peace with yourself, this is your space. Because you only get one life and it truly matters. Just before we get into this episode, I just want to mention that this podcast is for general information, insight, and reflection only. It's not a substitute for personal therapy, counselling, or medical advice. Before we get started, I want you to take a second and check in with yourself. Relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and take a deep breath. Today, we're talking about an emotion that every single one of us has felt recently, maybe even earlier today. Whether it was someone cutting you off in traffic, a passive-aggressive email at work, or someone saying the wrong thing, we need to talk about anger. Anger gets terrible press. From the time we're kids, we're taught that anger is bad. It's destructive, it's unattractive, and it's something we're supposed to suppress, hide, or apologise for having. But over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to completely change how you view this emotion. We're going to be looking at what actually happens in your brain and body during a sudden rage spike, the 4 distinct ways anger shows up, including the subtle, hidden types. Why anger is actually an essential, protective, evolutionary tool. And most importantly, practical, science-backed strategies you can use in real time to turn down the heat before you say or do something you regret. So let's start at the very beginning. What is physically happening inside you when anger strikes? Because anger isn't just a mood, it's a full-body biological event. Imagine your brain as a house. Upstairs in the top floor, you have your prefrontal cortex. This is the smart, logical part of the brain. It manages long-term planning, impulse control, and rational thought. Downstairs, in the basement, you have the amygdala. This is your brain's smoke detector. Its only job is to ask one simple question. Am I safe right now? When someone insults you, breaches your boundaries, or cuts you off, your amygdala doesn't wait to consult the upstairs adult. It pulls the fire alarm instantly. Within milliseconds, your brain bypasses logic and initiates an adrenaline surge. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks into high gear. Your heart rate spikes and blood pressure jumps. Your pupils dilate to sharpen vision. Your muscles, especially in your shoulders, neck and hands, tense up, and blood rushes away from your stomach towards your arms and legs, preparing you to fight or flee. The response made perfect sense when our ancestors were running from physical predators. But today, your brain reacts to a snide comment from someone with the exact same physiological emergency as a threat to your life. Now, beyond the biology, psychologists refer to anger as a secondary emotion. This concept completely changed how I look at my own frustration, and I think it might do the same for you too. Think of anger as an iceberg. What sits above the surface, the part everyone sees, is anger. It can be loud, defensive, and sharp. But if we look underwater and beneath the surface, underneath that anger sit the primary emotions: fear, sadness, shame, feeling unappreciated, or feeling helpless. When you snap at someone over, I don't know, a dirty dish in the sink or something, it's almost never about the dish. The dish is just the match landing on a pile of dry fuel built up from feeling overworked, unheard, or vulnerable. I know for me it's a case of, why the hell should I be cleaning up other people's mess when they're perfectly capable of doing it themselves? I feel taken for granted and that they're taking the piss. Now, to understand why your dry fuel ignites so quickly, we have to trace the line back to where your emotional patterns were first formed. And because none of us were born with an anger management manual, we learned it by watching and adapting to our childhood environments. Childhood anger can show up in so many different ways. Some kids channel it into physical stomach aches. Others hide it behind humour or hyper-control. And some take it out on siblings or peers. But because we're focusing on how these patterns mature into adulthood, I want to zero in on the two primary extremes that almost always stem from those early family rules: passive anger and aggressive anger. Think back to the household you grew up in. What happened when anger entered the room? For many people, as kids, anger was strictly forbidden, at least for them. You might have grown up under a massive double standard. It was completely acceptable for a parent or authority figure to yell, slam doors, or lose their temper. But if you raised your voice, cried out in frustration, or talked back, you were immediately punished, shamed, or told you were being bad. In other households, showing anger wasn't just punished, it was treated as deeply impolite, uncivilized, or wrong. You were taught that good children don't throw fits, or we don't yell in this house. When a child learns that their natural anger is unacceptable, something dangerous happens. Anger becomes bound to shame. You learn to believe, my anger makes me unlovable. Losing my temper means I'm broken, wrong, and unacceptable. So, to survive and keep the peace, you learn to stuff it down. You become a people pleaser, a quiet internalizer, or someone who completely disconnects from their own feelings. But here's the problem with burying emotions. You bury them alive. They don't die. They sit under the surface, slowly building up pressure over 10, 20, or 30 years, eventually showing up as everything from chronic headaches to gut pain. And this brings us to a pattern a lot of people struggle with but rarely talk about openly: the hair trigger temper. You might know someone, or maybe this is you, who goes from 0 to 100 in a fraction of a second. There's usually no slow burn, no warning sign, just a sudden explosive loss of control over something that seems minor to everyone else. Where does that short fuse actually come from? Almost always, a hair trigger temper is a defensive, hypervigilance system built in childhood or past trauma. If you grew up in an unpredictable environment where a parent's mood could shift instantly, or where criticism was sharp and frequent, your brain learned to stay on high alert 24/7. Your amygdala, that emotional smoke detector we talked about earlier, well, it learned that threats appear without warning, so you must be ready to defend yourself instantly. Fast forward to adulthood, and an innocent comment like, "Did you forget to lock the door?" isn't heard as a simple question. To a hypervigilant nervous system, it's interpreted as an attack. You failed, you're incompetent, and you're being criticized. Before your logical brain can even process what was actually said, your childhood defense mechanism kicks in to shield you from the pain of shame. And the best defense? An immediate aggressive offense. You blow up, raise your voice, or shut the conversation down cold, not because you're mean or malicious, but because your nervous system genuinely feels like it's under siege. You're not reacting to the person across from you today. You're reacting to the vulnerability and threat you felt decades ago. If you catch yourself having a hair trigger reaction, ask yourself this one question in the aftermath. Am I responding to what was just said, or am I reacting to how it made me feel about myself? Recognizing that your short fuse is actually a misdirected shield is the first step in turning down the sensitivity on that alarm. Because of these childhood rules, we develop distinct coping styles. See if you recognize your default mode in these 4 types. First up is passive anger, which we've mentioned. This is common if you grew up in an environment where conflict was dangerous or frowned upon. And instead of expressing anger, you learn to push it down. It looks like agreeing to things you hate, keeping the peace at all costs, or turning that anger inward as self-criticism and depression. But anger doesn't appear just because you swallow it. It sits inside and over time turns into deep-seated resentment. Second is that aggressive anger, the classic outward explosion I've just talked about. Yelling, slamming doors, name-calling, or using power and fear to dominate the room. People who lean into aggressive anger often feel a temporary sense of relief or control when they blow up, but it leaves destruction, broken trust, and guilt in its wake. Third is passive-aggressive anger, the sneaky attack. This is a combination of the first 2. You're angry, but you won't admit it directly. It's the sarcastic remark, the heavy sigh, the silent treatment, or accidentally forgetting to do something you promised you'd do. It's an attempt to punish the other person without taking the risk of having a direct, honest conversation or a row. Finally, we have assertive anger, healthy anger, and this is where we want to land. Assertive anger doesn't hide the emotion, nor does it use it as a weapon. It looks like saying, I feel really upset right now because our agreement was broken and I need us to figure out how to fix this together. It sets firm boundaries while keeping respect intact. Now, hearing all of that, you might think, okay, so anger is just a problem to solve. But here's the thing. Anger is actually vital to human survival and personal growth. If we didn't have anger, we would have no boundaries. Anger is your internal alarm system telling you 3 specific things. A boundary's been crossed, an injustice has occurred, and something you care about is being blocked. Think about social progress throughout history. Civil rights, labour protections, women's suffrage. None of these movements were fueled by calm indifference. They were sparked by righteous anger. Anger that said, this is wrong and it needs to change. On an individual level, anger gives you the energy to walk away from toxic situations, stand up for someone being mistreated, or finally make that scary life change you've been putting off. Anger isn't the enemy. It's information. The goal isn't to stop feeling angry. It's to learn how to listen to the message without letting the fire burn the house down. So when does anger become toxic? Well, it comes down to 4 things: frequency, duration, intensity, and how it's expressed. And if you're constantly quick to snap, stay angry for days, or express it through destruction or withdrawal, it starts doing serious damage. Damage to your relationships. Trust takes years to build and seconds to break during a single explosive rage episode. Toxic anger doesn't just poison our relationships, it quietly poisons our bodies, our minds, and our ability to experience peace and calm. When you live in a chronic state of low-grade hostility, your body is continuously bathing in cortisol and adrenaline. Studies show that this chronic anger leads to elevated risk of heart attack and high blood pressure, a weakened immune system, increased rates of insomnia, problems with digestion, muscle tension and chronic pain, headaches and migraines, higher risk of unhealthy coping behaviours such as overeating, smoking, excessive drinking, or drug use. And as for your mental health, it causes increased anxiety and chronic stress, depression or low mood, irritability and emotional exhaustion, poor concentration and brain fog, difficulty sleeping and insomnia, feelings of guilt, shame, regret, and greater risk of burnout. And toxic anger can even cause a shorter life expectancy due to the cumulative effects of chronic stress on the body and mind, and is often sustained by what psychologists call cognitive distortions. And these are mental traps like mind reading, deciding you know someone's motives. They did that on purpose just to piss me off. The should statements, expecting the world to conform to your rules. People should know how to drive properly. When we hold on to these rigid expectations, reality constantly disappoints us, keeping our internal alarm system perpetually primed to explode. So how do we fix this? How do we actually build a healthier relationship with anger? While there's no single quick fix, but tons of different ways of coping, I want to offer a couple of actionable strategies you can start using right now. I split these into two categories: in the moment circuit breakers and long-term habits. Let's take a look at a few in the moment circuit breakers. There's something called the 90-second rule by neuroscientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who discovered that the chemical surge of an emotional response only lasts about 90 seconds in the body. If you're still angry after a minute and a half, it's because your conscious thoughts are actively re-triggering the response. If you can simply ground yourself and survive those first 90 seconds without reacting, the chemical wave should pass. Then we have the physiological sigh. If you feel that heat rising in your chest, use your body to fix your brain. Take 2 quick inhales through your nose, followed by 1 long, slow exhale through your mouth. Doing this twice immediately tricks your nervous system into slowing down your heart rate. The scripted timeout. As hard as it is in the moment, if you feel your anger rising and worry things might get out of hand, try saying something along the lines of, "I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed right now and I don't want to say something I might regret. So I'm going to take 15 minutes to cool off and then we can finish this conversation." And fourthly, when it comes to road rage, which, let's be honest, we've all experienced at one time or another, I often tell my clients to try a quick mental reframe. Imagine the person who just cut you off is having a genuine emergency and trying to get to a hospital. That shift in perspective can take you from blind rage to compassion in about 2 seconds. And look, if compassion doesn't work, just picture them sitting on the loo. That usually does the trick for me. And when it comes to long-term habits, uncover the iceberg. When you cool down, ask yourself, what was I actually feeling under that anger? Was I scared? Was I embarrassed? And challenge your initial story. Instead of, "They did this on purpose just to piss me off and wind me up," try asking, what else could be true here? Could they just be having a really bad day? Anger isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a natural, healthy warning light on your emotional dashboard. It's telling you that something needs attention. So the next time you feel that heat rising, pause for 90 seconds, breathe through a long exhale, look beneath the surface of the iceberg, and choose to express your boundaries with clarity instead of destruction. And finally, remember that anger is a completely natural human reaction. We all lose our shit from time to time. It's a universal part of the human experience, and you're not broken, wrong, or mad for feeling it. But by taking a breath and practicing these techniques, step by step, you might just find that managing your response to anger becomes a whole lot easier over time. And until next time, I wish you peace and calm. Thank you for joining me on One Life Matters. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love you to subscribe and maybe share it with someone who might need it too. And remember, you only get one life, so make it one that truly matters. Until next time, take care of yourself.